Imagine being a millionaire, surrounded by luxury, but carrying the weight of a heart-wrenching secret. A daughter who's never spoken a word in her life. No one knows why, doctors can't explain it. One day, in a crowded park, a stranger walks into their world, a man whose presence is as shocking as it is powerful. In that moment, something happens, something unimaginable. Her silence is shattered. But how? And why does this encounter change everything? Stay with us to find out. What happens when the unspoken is finally said? In a world where wealth is measured in endless mansions and private jets, Mark had it all. A successful entrepreneur, he spent his days in boardrooms, striking deals that kept his empire expanding. Yet, at home, there was a piece of his life that money couldn't fix. A daughter, Maya. For years, she had been silent, not because she chose it, but because she couldn't speak. Her condition had baffled every doctor Mark had sought. They said it was something beyond medical explanation, a tragedy that seemed to live in the silence that surrounded her. Despite everything, Mark loved Maya with a fierceness that kept him going. They would spend hours in the park together as he tried to make up for the absence of words with his presence. On the surface, everything seemed perfect, but beneath the surface, Mark carried a quiet desperation. He couldn't help but wonder. Would she ever speak? Could she? One afternoon, as they wandered through the park, a stranger sat on the bench near them. A man with dark eyes and a gaze that seemed to pierce through the calm. Something about him felt different, a quiet energy that made the world around him feel almost still. Mark didn't know it then, but this man would change everything. This moment, this encounter, would be the beginning of something neither of them were prepared for. The days following Maya's first word were a blur for Mark. He couldn't focus on anything: work, his wealth, the world outside. All that mattered was what had happened in the park. Maya's silence had been shattered, but the questions kept coming. Why did she speak? Why now? And who was that man? Mark tried to forget about the stranger, but he couldn't. The way Maya had looked at him, the way the man had simply nodded, something about it felt wrong, like there was a larger force at play, something Mark wasn't ready to understand. And then it happened again. Mark and Maya returned to the park. The familiar routine felt almost comforting, like a small anchor in a sea of confusion. But when they arrived, the man was there, sitting on the same bench. This time, Mark didn't hesitate. His fear and anger mixed in a storm inside him as he approached the man. "What did you do to my daughter?" he demanded, his voice shaking. The man looked up slowly, unfazed, his expression calm but his eyes heavy. "I didn't do anything to her," he said softly. "I only showed her the world through a different lens. She's always had a voice, Mark. You just never allowed her to use it." The words hit like a slap, but Mark was too enraged to speak. This man, this stranger, was playing with his life, with his daughter's future. "How dare you? You don't know anything about me, about her." The man stood, his height looming over Mark. "I know what silence can do to a soul," he said, his voice steady. "But you don't understand that, do you?" Mark's heart hammered in his chest. The pain of his daughter's silence had always felt like a personal failure, and now this man was accusing him of keeping her trapped in it. But before Mark could say anything more, the man turned and walked away. Mark stood frozen, his chest tightening with a mix of rage and confusion. The injustice was clear now. He had allowed the world, the weight of society's expectations, to silence Maya. But who was this man to come in, to awaken something within her that he had long since given up on? Maya looked up at him then, her eyes wide with something Mark hadn't seen before. Fear, maybe, but also understanding. "Why, Daddy?" she whispered again, her voice trembling, but stronger than the last time. Mark couldn't answer. He didn't have the words, but as the man disappeared into the distance, Mark realized something. Maya's silence had never been about her. It had been about him, and the truth, the hardest truth of all, was staring him in the face. Mark stood, in the park long after the man had walked away. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting an orange glow across the world, but in Mark's mind, everything felt dark. He had always thought he was doing everything right, working hard, providing for his daughter, giving her everything money could buy, but the silence. The silence had always been there, and he had never known how to break it. Maya, standing beside him now, took his hand. The bond between them was stronger than ever before, but the weight of the moment pressed down on Mark's chest. The man was right. Maya's silence was not just a mystery, it was a symbol of everything Mark had failed to address in his own life. His fears, his unspoken truths, the very things that society demanded of them, the silence of race, of privilege, of power, had been suffocating Maya, even if she didn't realize it. As they walked home, Maya looked up at him and spoke again, this time her voice steady, almost confident. "I want to speak, Daddy. I want to be heard." Tears welled up in Mark's eyes. This wasn't just about his daughter anymore. It was about everyone who had been silenced, forgotten, or forced into a corner by the world around them. And in that moment, Mark realized that breaking the silence wasn't just a personal victory, it was a call to action for everyone trapped in their own version of silence. Racism is a silence we've all been complicit in, whether through indifference, ignorance, or fear. But the question is, will we continue to let it define us, or will we raise our voices in defiance of it? The truth is, real change begins with breaking the silence, not just in the world around us, but in ourselves. As Mark looked down at his daughter, the answer was clear. They would no longer be silent, and neither should we.